Okay.
Hi.
Welcome, everybody. So I think you're all automatically muted, but you can unmute yourselves for now.
Hi.
And then when we start the lesson, we'll probably
Hi. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. So we're just going to wait a few minutes and make sure we have everybody before we get started. And for those of you who are on, one thing we're going to ask you to do, if you know how, is to see if you can change the name that's on there to your name. So that if you raise your hand and we call on you, we're actually using your name instead of your parents' name or whoever the Zoom account is under. So if you don't know how to do that, if you put the mouse over your picture, there's 3 little dots on the upper right corner. If you click on that, it'll bring down a little menu, and there's one that says rename. And maybe your parents can help you if you don't know how to do that, but you can rename to your name just so we know who we're talking to. All right, so it looks like Josie did that, right?
Charlie did too.
Charlie.
All right, hi Charlie.
Did you wash your hands?
Hi, Dan. Dan is our new volunteer.
Oh, yeah.
All right,
He's interested in helping in youth activities, so.
excellent. All right, let's see if we still have people joining. It's 3 o'clock right now. We'll maybe give people a few more minutes before we get started.
Dan is training with you tomorrow, Amanda.
Awesome. Well, nice to meet you, Dan. You're muted though.
You're
I can't
muted.
hear you.
You have to unmute. Oh,
Let's see.
There, that's better.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
so
Oh,
Dan,
yeah.
this is our second Zoom youth activity. So Cindy and Amanda are pretty much running those, and I appreciate it because I'm not very tech savvy. So, oh, there's.
Neither am I, but we're learning.
Hey, Michael.
Hmm.
Hi.
Hi.
Am I the first
Hi.
one here?
How are you, Michael?
Good.
Good.
I'm here too. Hi.
Hi, Linda.
I'm hiding. Hi, Wendy.
See you.
Hi.
Hi.
Wendy.
I'll be right back.
Okay, so we're just going to
Hi,
give
everybody.
everybody a minute, and then we'll get started.
Trying to get my cat back in the house, so excuse me if I leave.
Okay.
Poked his head
We'll
in, but
start
he
as soon
turned.
as Wendy gets back. I'm letting
Yeah.
the cat in the house.
Hey. Speaking of cats, where are my cats?
Hey, so I wanted to ask you, you just joined and you said hi when you came in, but I think that might be your dad's name at the bottom of your
Oh, yeah.
screen right now. Do you know how to change?
That happens every Zoom meeting.
That's okay. Do you know how to change your name so that it's your name in there?
Yes.
Okay, will you do that for us?
Amanda, I just sent you a chat message. I don't know if you saw it.
There she goes. There
All
we go.
right, Margot. Great.
My mom loves orcas.
Good. Do you love orcas too?
Yes. I mean, we
Good.
went to Seattle, and we're so lucky when we went to San Juan Islands. We saw like 4 orcas, 5 actually.
Oh, yay.
Wow.
3 in a little group just sailing, and then 2 on the way back.
Wow, you got lucky.
Nice.
Yeah, I got lucky.
All right. Well, I think we can go ahead and start. Should we start, Wendy and Amanda?
Yeah.
All right. Wendy, do you want to kind of start us out here?
Yeah. So, hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our second youth Zoom activity. We used to do these down at the Langley Whale Center. So how many of you were on the Zoom lesson last month about orcas?
I know Charlie was.
Okay, good. So we have different subjects every month. So we'll learn about lots of different things. And had any of you been to our Whale Center, the youth activities that we had in the Whale Center before?
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you have done that. Oh, good.
No?
I know I see some familiar faces. And just so you know, the Langley Whale Center has reopened 2 days a week. So if you want to go in with your families, you can check on Facebook to see what our days are, because it's different days every week, usually Thursday and Fridays, but that varies. So we're glad to be open. We've had to make a few changes, but we still have a lot of fun things to see and do. So today we will be learning about harbor seal, and we have our education team. Cindy is our Orca Network education coordinator, and Amanda is our education assistant. They do outreach and trainings, lots of different things. They do a lot of advocacy for orcas and marine mammals. And Amanda also works down usually once a week. So we're just really lucky to have these 2 ladies that know their stuff. So I will turn it over to Cindy.
Okay. So welcome everybody. What I'm going to do is just talk for just a couple minutes about Zoom and how we'll do questions and things like that. And then I'll turn it over to Amanda, who will do our lesson for today. So first of all, for those of you who joined a little bit later, if the name that is on the screen there is not your name, there is a way that you can change that to your name. So that if you have a question and we go to call on you, we're calling on you and not the person who has this Zoom account. So if you're not sure how to do that, there are 3 little dots at the top right of your picture screen. And if you click on that, it just brings down a little menu, and then you just click rename and put your name in there. So if you would do that, if the name that's on there is not your name, if you would do that for us, that would be really, really helpful. And then the way that we will do questions, there's a couple ways that we can do that. So there is a chat on the bottom. I'm sure a lot of you have already used Zoom, so you know about that. But if not, all you do is click the little chat button, and then you can write your questions in there. And then we can ask those at the end of the presentation. The other way that we can do questions is if you have a question, you can raise your hand. And so you can raise it just like you've been doing. That's one way to do it. But another way to do it is you can raise your hand by clicking the little raise hand button. So if you click on participants at the bottom of the screen, it'll bring up a list, and all you need to do is click on the little blue raise hand button that's on the bottom of the participants list. So hopefully everybody knows where that is. Very
that.
good, Marco. That was a really, really good demonstration.
I've been on Zoom before.
So Marga's got her hand raised, so we know she has a question, and now she just lowered it again. So that's how we can do questions those 2 ways. So, and we like for it to be interactive, so we'll definitely call on you for questions if you have any. Amanda, would you prefer for people to save their questions until the end, or to ask them as they have their questions?
So actually, I'm going to be asking quite a few questions. And what I think might happen while I'm sharing my screen is that I probably won't be able to see all of the boxes. So maybe if you do have a question and you put your hand up, I'll wait until there's kind of a break in what we're talking about to call on you. But I do have time at the very end of the presentation for any questions you have about anything.
And if you have a question and you're not sure if you'll remember it until the end, then you could also always write it in the chat. And that way we can make sure that we get that question to Amanda at the end. Okay, are we ready to go? So the first thing we want to do before we start with the presentation is we just want to know who you are. So what we thought we would do, we'll just call on everybody, have you tell us, you know, your name and maybe where you're from. Because the great thing about Zoom is sometimes we get people from other places than just Whidbey Island. And so it's kind of fun for us to see where everybody's from. So we'll do some introductions. I'll start with myself. My name is Cindy, and I am the education coordinator at Orca Network, and I live on San Juan Island. Amanda, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name's Amanda, and I'm the education assistant for Orca Network, and I actually live in Burlington.
And those are both
Wendy.
in Washington, if any of you are
Yeah,
not
in Washington.
Washington. Wendy?
I'm Wendy Sines, and I manage the Langley Whale Center, and I live in Freeland.
All right, Josie.
You want to say where you're from? Just wait.
Does Josie want to do an introduction?
You can hit it.
All right. Let's go with Margot.
I am from Georgia.
Nice.
I'm like half the country away from you guys.
That's really cool.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And Charlie? There you
Sorry, my mom's mouse has very bad computer problems.
Uh-oh.
I'm Charlie and I'm from Whidbey Island.
All
Awesome.
right. Welcome, Charlie. Dan.
My name is Dan, and I'm a new volunteer at the Whale Center, and I live in Langley for half the year, and then when it starts to get cold, I spend the other half the year in Tucson, Arizona.
Awesome.
Smart. All right, Abby.
Yeah, say your name. I
I'm Abby and
Kirkland.
I am from Kirkland, Washington.
You can introduce Jack.
And this is Jack. He is from Kirkland, Washington too.
He's my brother.
Awesome.
He's my brother.
Great. Welcome, both of you. Hey, Michael.
Hi, my name is Michael, and I'm from Washington, Bremerton, and I'm a volunteer at the Langley Orca Center.
Excellent.
Yeah, Wilson.
Yay. Thanks, Michael. Megan, are you there? We have some people here without their screens, so I don't know if they're there or not. But Megan, if you're there and want to introduce yourself, you can. Or if not, we can go with Bear. Hi, Bear. Bye, Bear. Great. And that's okay. If you don't want to talk or introduce yourself, that is totally fine. Krista or Chad, does anybody want to say hello? If not, that's okay.
I'm from Spokane, Washington.
Where are you from?
Spokane, Washington.
Spokane, great. Welcome.
Nice.
I'm Krista from Freshwater Bay, and I'm a new marine naturalist. So I'm checking out what you guys do with the kids because I love working with kids.
Awesome.
Great.
So,
Welcome. Susan, are you there? Would you like to say hello?
Yes, hello. Sorry if I missed you earlier. Actually reading an email about our elephant seals. I'm Sue,
Yay.
and I live in Freeland. Good to see everybody here.
And what do you do with Orca Network, Susan? Besides everything.
Everything everyone tells me to do. I'm the boss.
She's a very
boss
good
lady.
boss. Susan's in charge of everything. Okay, and it looks like we just had a new person join as well. Tanya, is that right? We're just doing quick introductions and telling where everybody's from. And it's totally up to you. If you don't want to speak, you don't have to. But if you'd like to introduce yourself, you're more than welcome to. All right. Well, I will go ahead and turn it over to Amanda to do our lesson. And
All
if you have
right.
questions, you can write those in chat or you can raise the little virtual hand.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen so we can go through the presentation, and I'm going to check to make sure everybody can see this as we start. So let's give my computer a second to catch up. Can everybody see the screen okay? I can't see anybody's box to confirm that.
It's on.
Okay.
I can see it well.
Perfect. All right, so today we are going to talk about harbor seals. They are the small seal that we were referring to when we were talking about the big seals and the small seals. But what happened when we were trying to put our presentation together was we realized we have a lot of information on both harbor seals and elephant seals. So we're going to break it up into two separate presentations. So today our focus is just going to be on these cute little guys here. So I wanted to start off kind of reminding everybody, if you don't know already, that seals are marine mammals. But what is a marine mammal? So let's kind of talk about that first. And I want to start with the word mammal. So mammals are creatures that are warm-blooded. They have hair or fur somewhere on their bodies. They breathe air through lungs. They give birth to live young, meaning they don't lay eggs. And then they nurse their young on milk. So I've got some photos here of some mammals that we probably know very well. I'm sure most of you have pets, so cats or dogs, those are considered mammals. I've got a couple other species on here, but I wanted to ask all of you, what other animals can you think of that might be mammals? So does anybody want to tell me what other mammals they think we've got in our animal category? Raise your hand. All right, let's see.
We have a few in the chat as well, Amanda, if you didn't see that.
Ooh, so Abby wrote walrus, and you're close. We're gonna, it is a mammal. Actually, that's what we're gonna get to on the next page when we dive into marine mammals, humpback whales as well. So great. And then who else had their hand up? Nobody else?
And Bear wrote humpback.
From Michael, perfect. So you guys are already taking everything off my next slide. Look how smart you are. So we're gonna go back. And we're gonna move on to what it means to be a marine mammal. So we talked about all the basics for being a mammal, and now I want to talk about what makes something a marine mammal versus a mammal that lives on land. And so they're specially adapted to living in the ocean or the water. And when I say specially adapted, I mean there are usually body parts that are made specifically to help them breathe or help them swim, something that has happened that makes them capable to very easily live in a marine environment. They have a thick layer of blubber, which is fat, and that helps keep them warm. They have sleek or streamlined bodies to help them swim faster. And I have a picture of what that looks like here in just a second. And then they have this amazing adaptation where they can store extra oxygen in their muscles and in their blood, and that's what lets them stay underwater for longer periods of time. So most marine mammals also have flippers or tails that will help them move through the water. So you guys already covered everything in the chat. You told me that walruses were marine mammals. We've got dolphins on here. Orca is the largest in the dolphin family. I've got a picture of a humpback down here. So you guys already did a really good job at identifying marine mammals. So the other thing I kind of wanted to take a second to do, maybe we'll circle back to this at the end, is maybe during this presentation, think about the things that you see while we're talking about seals, harbor seals specifically, that makes this animal a marine mammal. So I wanted to back up to what is a seal. So seals have short forelimbs, which are these flippers right here in the front. They're pretty short. They have no external ear flap like sea lions do, and like we do. Our ears are on the outside and we've got these, ear flaps here. They actually have a small hole right here instead that's just behind the eye, and it's an opening that leads into the ear canal so that they can receive sound. And then their hind flippers back here are fixed in place, and it helps to propel them through the water, so it helps them to swim. They can't actually move those flippers forward so that they're able to walk on land like sea lions do. They're just kind of back there in place to help with swimming. And so seal size and weight, they weigh differently depending on if they are babies or seal pups, if they're females as adults, or if they're males as adults. And so harbor seal pup babies can weigh about 24 pounds when they're born, and they can be up to 36 inches long, which is 3 feet. So I'd be willing to bet that most of you guys on the Zoom call today are probably somewhere between maybe 3 and 4 or 4.5 feet tall. So think about that. Mom gives birth to something that's, about your size as far as feet go. An adult male can grow to weigh about 285 pounds, and they can be up to 6 feet in length. So maybe the average size of your dad. And then an adult female is slightly smaller at around 180 pounds and is closer to 5 feet in length. So they're still pretty big animals. And I see, so we have a hand raised. Margot, did you have a question about something on one of the last slides?
No, I just accidentally pressed that.
Oh, no worries. Okay. So we want to talk about what they look like too. I think all these photos we've had so far, maybe you guys have even had a chance to see harbor seals near the water. But if you guys notice in this picture here, all 3 of these animals are harbor seals, but they have very different coats. So if you look at them, we've got one that's very dark, almost black, with really, really light spots. We've got one that's pretty white with dark spots. And then we have one that's kind of a silvery gray, and it's got a little bit of both colors. And so these aren't separate species from each other. It's just that their coats are a little bit different. And when you go out near the rocks, which is the environment that they're on in this photo, it's actually a really good camouflage depending on where they decide to come out on land. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So habits and behavior of harbor seals. Maybe this photo down here at the bottom is how you've seen them before, or maybe you've seen them on the beach. But what happens is seals haul out of the water, and that's what we call it when they come up and out of the water. They try to find protected beaches, narrow coastal lands called spits, or rocks, and when they come out of the water, they're going to bask in the sun, maybe they'll sleep, and they usually do this in large groups of animals. So does anybody know why that might be? You can unmute yourself if you have an idea.
Mute.
Go ahead, Abby.
So I was just wondering,
why do you think they go together?
I think that they go together pretty much because they keep away from prey. No.
They keep away from things that might try to eat them.
I'll grab
Yeah,
one.
predators.
Also pray
Okay.
because like I'm done that.
They keep away from things that can hurt them.
Yes, those are two excellent answers. Margot, you have your hand up. Do you want to answer, Margot?
That I was like trying to keep my hand up so I could tell why they would be on rocks and large
Okay.
groups.
What's your idea?
Because like maybe one can always, like the chief can always be on the lookout and warn the others before it's too late.
Gotcha. So another vote for trying to keep themselves safe, right? So what
Yes.
about besides predators? Does anybody have any ideas? Why would seals want to come out and try to get some sun? What do you think them basking in the sun helps them do? Any ideas? All right, we're going to go over the list of reasons why they haul out. And so they actually do it for a lot of reasons. You guys were right. I have avoiding predators on here. But they come out of the water to help regulate their body temperature. When they're in the sun, they're going to warm up a little bit. And even though they have that nice thick layer of blood warm, from time to time, they'll come out of the water to really warm up because that water is pretty cold. And then seals go through something where they molt or they shed their fur and their coat on the outside. So they come out of the water in order to do that. And then you guys were right too. They like interacting with other harbor seals. And then it's a safe spot for mom to give birth, nurse, and raise seal pups out of the way of other predators or other dangers that could be around the water. And so moving on land for seals, we talked about how that back flipper right here that I have the arrow drawn to is fixed in place. So they are really, really well adapted to swim in the water, but they are not very good at moving on land. They kind of just flop around a little bit if you do see them trying to attempt it. And it's because those hind legs cannot be brought underneath the body for any walking motion. So what they do instead is they use those really short front flippers we talked about, and they pull themselves along the beach, dragging those hind flippers behind them. So most times you won't see them very high up on the beach or high up on the rocks. And if you do, one of the reasons is because they got to that spot before the tide went out. And so after the tide goes out, they're kind of stuck where they are until the tide comes back in and they can get back in the water. So their diet, what they eat, you guys can see the harbor seal's got a little snack in his front flippers there. They eat a lot of things. So fish, shellfish, shrimp, squid, crustaceans, so crab-like creatures. Abby, do you have a question?
What kind, are they like picky?
No, so actually, these seals are not specialists. If we were to call them specialists, they would only prefer one or two things in particular, which would mean that they were kind of picky about their food. But since there's so many things that they eat, they're actually animals that are just looking for an opportunity to basically get something in their bellies. So they have a pretty varied diet, or they have a wide variety of things that they will eat. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. So harbor seals too, in order to find food, they will shallow dive, so just for a couple of minutes, or they will deep dive while they're hunting, depending on where their prey or their food resource might be available. So any guesses on how they find their prey? Let's list some things. So look at the picture below and look at it kind of closely. We talked about special adaptations on marine mammals, so special body parts that certain marine mammals have to swim. But if you look at this guy really closely, he has a very special adaptation to help find food. Margot, what do you think the seal has to help find food?
You see its whiskers? It feels around for food with its whiskers. So then if it feels food, then it can just take a bite and take it up to the surface.
You're absolutely right. So I'm going to skip ahead and just let you guys know they actually use their extremely sensitive whiskers to do that. And you're totally right. So what happened was scientists were noticing, and they did some experiments that show when fish are moving through the water, they create a movement called a wake. And the whiskers are so sensitive that when they're swimming through the water looking for food, those whiskers help detect those tiny movements in the water. And then they go right over to where that prey is, and it's lunchtime for those guys. So good job, Margot. So how about this, you guys? Do you think that harbor seals, well, I gave it away. Do you think that they drink water? They don't drink water. So harbor seals don't drink salt water. A lot of marine mammals that live in the marine environment don't drink salt water. They get enough water in their bodies from the food that they eat. And seals have a very special kidney structure. So humans have kidneys too, and that helps us filter out toxins and filter our food. It keeps us hydrated. They have a very special kidney structure that helps to remove any extra salt that would cause problems for their body or cause dehydration. So they actually get their water from the food that they eat. And then a fun fact I wanted to share with you guys, along with this really awesome picture of a harbor seal in a kelp bed underneath there, is that harbor seals sleep under the water, and they will come up for air once every 30 minutes. So they can stay submerged for 30 minutes without taking a breath, and they can sleep while they're down there. So they can sleep up on the rocks, or they can sleep under the surface. And so one of the natural predators that we have around here in the Salish Sea for harbor seals are our Bigg's orcas. If you guys have been to the Langley Whale Center before, or maybe if you were on our last Zoom, we might have talked about Bigg's orcas a little bit. But so we have fish eating orcas in the Salish Sea, and then we have another community that are marine mammal eating orcas. So unfortunately, harbor seals are on the marine mammal orcas menu, and they're a natural predator that occurs in the wild. So what the orcas do is they try to sneak up on and surprise these harbor seals. Harbor seals actually can hear very well, and they can tell the difference between the fish eaters and the mammal eaters. And what will happen is those seals, you guys already said, they'll quickly get out of the water, they'll alert each other and try to get up on those rocks and stay away from those orcas. And so we wanted to wrap everything up by talking about seal pups specifically, because right now around Whidbey and Camino Island, we are seeing a lot of harbor seals give birth to seal pups. And that's going to be part of our activity today. So we're going to talk about seal pups. So harbor seals, their females, give birth to only one pup each year. And the mom is going to nurse and raise that pup for 4 to 6 weeks before weaning them. And that means that after 4 to 6 weeks, they're not going to be nursing from mom anymore. They're going to have to figure out how to find their own food and kind of be on their own. So she will leave her pup to go find a mate for next year's pup shortly after she has the baby. And that means that harbor seal pups, when they're anywhere from 28 to 42 days old, they have to figure out how to survive in the wild by themselves. Do you guys think that you could do that at 28 to 42 days old? Would anybody think humans could do it? I don't see any hands raised. I don't think we could do it either. So there is a season when female harbor seals give birth, and we call it pupping season. And that's because the female is giving birth to a pup, which is what we call baby harbor seal. Around Whidbey and Camino Islands, so I know we had somebody here from Georgia, those are the two islands that are kind of located in northern Puget Sound, if you've ever looked at Seattle and Washington on a map. So they are islands out in the Salish Sea. The season usually runs from late June through July. So we're probably coming up on being close to all of the pups, or all of the moms having pups at this point. And mom and pup, as you guys can see in the picture that I have here, they share a very close bond during the first few weeks of the pup's life. Mom is going to nurse that pup, and her milk is made up of really high fat content. So almost 40% milk fat. And what that happens is it helps the pup to gain a full pound every day for the first few days of its life. So it really starts to gain weight and try to build up that blubber layer that it's going to need if it's going to swim in the cold water. So what that means too is when a harbor seal is ready to leave mom, he's probably going to be close to 70 or 75 pounds when he does so. So he'll be 3 times the size he was when he was born, just 28 to 42 days before that. Abby, did you have a question?
Why do the boys fight for the girls by biting each other?
Well, sometimes they just really like the same girl, right? So that happens sometimes. But usually it's just because they all are in competition with each other,
And they
right?
want to show off to the girl.
Yeah, they want to show off. That's absolutely right. All right. So another thing, harbor seal pups can swim shortly after they're born, but they can't do it for a really long time. They're not strong enough to do it yet. So what you'll usually see is a pup that can go into the water for a few minutes at a time, but then it's usually on the beach, or it will find another safe spot to kind of be hauled out of the water, and it spends its time there. So what it means is you're going to see young harbor seal pups on the beach, maybe on the rocks, sometimes on docks where people park their boats for the first few weeks of its life while it's trying to build up its strength and become a bigger harbor seal. And that's a completely normal behavior for these guys to be out of the water the first few weeks of its life. And what the mom is going to do is the seal pup's mom is going to leave the pup in a really safe area, and she's going to go back to hunting for food, which is absolutely normal, and it's a necessary behavior, because if mom isn't eating and getting all the calories that she needs, she's not going to be able to produce that milk that the pup needs in order to eat and survive himself. So one thing that typically happens when we see harbor seals is, especially the pups, is that they sleep very soundly on the beach. And we're going to go over a couple things, because if you just saw this picture, you might not know that the harbor seal pup is sleeping. And so we already talked about how harbor seals can hold their breath for up to 30 minutes under the water before coming back up to the surface to breathe. And that's the same thing for these guys, even when they're parked on the beach. So what happens is it sounds like the harbor seal has irregular breathing, meaning there's not a very good pattern to it. But again, that's completely normal for harbor seal pups because they are conscious breathers. And what I mean when I say that is they have to actively think about taking a breath. Whereas you and I, when we go to sleep at night as humans, or even when we go about our daily lives, we're breathing and we're taking in a breath and letting one out, and we're not having to think about it in order to do it. We are subconscious breathers. So that's kind of automatic for us. But most marine mammals that live in the water have to actively think about taking that breath, so that they have to come up to the surface in order to do it. So the reason that I bring these things up about breathing and sleeping is because I want you guys to know in this picture, the seal pup is not dead. They are sleeping, even though it appears to be maybe not well or possibly dead. It is in fact sleeping. And so another danger or predator that I want to quickly talk about with you guys is on the last slide, when I showed you that harbor seal pup, it was all alone. It was sleeping on the beach, and we talked about those reasons why. We know mom is probably off hunting for herself somewhere, and that baby isn't capable of swimming for long periods of time. But if you didn't know that about the seal pups, and you didn't know that it was natural for it to be left alone while mom was looking for food, who would think that maybe the seal pup was in trouble or hurt or maybe need help? You guys want to put your hands up if you didn't know? I see a couple. So a lot of humans actually think the very same thing when they see that picture or when they see pups on the beach, because they don't realize that it's normal behavior for the pups to be on the beach alone. And when they think that the pup needs help, they mean really good by helping it. They want to make sure that it's okay. But what happens is it turns out that if a human tries to help a pup, it could actually put them in danger instead of helping them. And we're going to kind of talk about some of the reasons why. So why would helping a pup put it in danger? And it's because harbor seals are really shy animals. They prefer not to be very close to humans. So if a mama harbor seal sees people around her pup on the beach while she's swimming in the water, or if the pup has been picked up and moved to another place where she didn't leave it originally, she might fear us or sense danger, and then she might leave the area. And what happens when she leaves is she's not going to come back. She's going to abandon the pup. And what abandon means is she's going to leave and not come back. And I have a couple hands up. So I have Gabriel's hand up. I've got Margot's hand up. Let's start with Gabriel first. Did you have a question? All right, let's try Margot. We'll circle back to you, Gabriel.
So what does the dad do during all this? Because I think they have to mate for them to be able to have a pup. What does the dad do the whole time?
So dad's not really in the picture right now. Most of what happens during the pupping season is you'll see a lot of females up on rocks with their pups. And then mom has to leave to go locate those males in order to mate and then gestate or, you know, grow that baby until next year. So it's a cycle that constantly repeats itself. But because dad can't nurse, he doesn't have the biology to do that. That's up to mom. He's not really helping raise the pup at all. So he's just not in the picture. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so he's just on his own eating some fish while the mom is taking care of the pup.
Yep. Waiting for the next breeding season. Exactly. All right. And then Abby, did you have a question too? Or were you just waving?
I might have to go because I have a pool and I'm getting pretty hot.
Okay. Well, jump in for us.
Okay, bye.
All right. Bye.
Okay, bye.
All right. So I have these giant circles with an X through them because these two photos that I showed you guys here, one has a pup on a towel. You can see the human's knee and his hand in there. He probably means very well and thought that the pup shouldn't be there alone and that signaled danger. But what's actually happening is he's too close. He probably handled the pup and the pup is probably not in the same spot that mom left it. So what's happening here is we've run the risk of mom getting scared and not coming back to pick the pup up after that. And then in the second picture, it looks like somebody might have used their green bag that they use while they're collecting things on the beach to bring the pup up the beach. And since she's moved it, you guys can see that pup is really wrinkly and kind of fatty. It's a healthy pup. It's just that this person probably didn't know it just needed to stay where it was left, basically. So I wanted to be sure. I'm not sharing these photos with you guys to encourage this. I'm sharing these photos with you because I want you to know what we shouldn't be doing around seal pups. So touching the seal, putting your hands on seal fur can actually transfer some of our human smell to their skin. And that's another thing that mom might abandon her pup over because the pup will smell like human and not smell like her baby anymore. And she might get confused and abandon the pup because of that. And then touching one or getting really close and interacting with a seal pup could cause the pup to imprint on a human. And when I say that, what I mean is that they start to like us and maybe not be afraid of us. They want to be near us or follow us down the beach. You know, our dogs and our cats that live with us kind of imprint on us. We're the humans that feed them and love them and cuddle them. And so they, you know, love us and cuddle us back. But sometimes when you have people come over to your house that they don't know, they're not as maybe affectionate, they might hide. So this is the same kind of thought process to think about when you see a seal pup in real life. So because of those two things, because of possibly putting your human smell on the pup, and because of running the risk of having that seal imprint on us, it hurts their chance to survive in the wild. And those are really, really the big main reasons why we don't touch seal pups on the beach ever. So again, this picture is not a good example of what we should do around seal pups. So our Marine Mammal Stranding Network through Orca Network has a campaign called Share the Shore. And when we say share the shore, we basically mean with everybody. But since we're talking about the seal pups today, I wanted to go over what you should do when you see a seal pup on the beach. And the number one thing you should do is give it as much space as you can. But if it's a small area that you're trying to pass through, our general rule is to give it 100 yards of space. And if you don't know what 100 yards is, there's 3 feet in every yard. So it's 300 feet. And if you've ever seen a football game on TV or been to one, it is the size of 1 football field. So it's actually a lot of space, but that's how much space you should be keeping away from the pup. The next biggest thing to do is to keep dogs on a leash at all times and keep them away from the pup too. Your dog is probably going to be pretty curious, but for the same reason that we said we can get human scent on the pup, the dogs can actually get their scent on the pup too, which is another thing that mom will be able to sense and smell and could possibly think that that means the pup was in danger. If the pup doesn't seem well, so if it didn't look like the fluffy, round, wrinkly baby that I had on the last page, and it looks skinny, and by skinny, what I mean is you can see shoulder blades or hip bones, they look really, really small. Or if it appears to have an injury, maybe it did come across another animal, what we ask everybody to do is call the local Marine Mammal Stranding Network. So there are networks set up everywhere along the coast and along the Salish Sea that you can call and report that animal on the beach and just say, hey, I'm not really sure, but I have concerns that this pup doesn't look very well, and maybe somebody should come out here and look at it and make the decision. And then the other thing to kind of stay on alert for is if the pup is being approached too closely by other people while you're on the beach, or maybe by their dogs. If somebody is trying to pick up that pup, or if they're harassing them, like throwing sticks or sand or water, or trying to take photos too close, the best thing you can do is just to say, hey, we're supposed to keep 100 yards away from them for their safety, and then to also call the local Marine Mammal Stranding Network and let us know what you saw. And
by the way, can you tell us the phone number or something of the local?
I've got some information on the next slide for you.
Okay.
So harbor seals and all of our marine mammals here are federally protected under the Marine Mammal Protection Act. So the government came up with an act that helps protect them from harassment or from anything that could harm them when it comes to humans. And if a person violates that law, they could be fined up to $100,000 and or possibly spend up to a year in prison. So you really don't want to mess with any marine mammals, right? And so this was what you were asking for, Margot. So our chapter of the Marine Mammal Stranding Network is called Central Puget Sound. And we cover Whidbey Island, Camano Island, a lot of Skagit County, which is where I live up here in Burlington, North Snohomish, so Marysville, and then I think that's probably the whole response area that we encompass. So if you're in any of those areas, you can call. And even if you're not sure, if you're somewhere else and you don't know who to get a hold of, you could probably call us and we can alert the proper authorities, right? NOAA Fisheries is another place that you can call. And so if you go to Orca Network's Facebook page or our website, you can find more information that'll lead you to our Stranding Network page. And it has the number for our coordinator or just a general number to try to get in touch with somebody and let them know if you see any harassment or if you think any marine mammal is in trouble. So I wanted to share these photos with you guys too. One of the things that the Stranding Network does when we respond, if you call and you tell us that there's a pup that might be being harassed on the beach and it's perfectly healthy, we want to make sure that people know to keep away that 100 yards and give the seal its privacy. So we have volunteers that will go do something called seal sitting. And they go out on the beach. They might be able to mark the site off with driftwood if they're on the beach. We have an elephant seal that likes to come out near anacortes, and we put caution tape up to try to rope off the area that she likes to hang out in when she's molting or shedding her coat, to keep people away from her far enough that it doesn't disturb her. And that's the goal, is that we're trying to educate people to keep their distance from the pups so that they have the best chance of mom coming back to feed them and maybe take them either up the beach or to the next place that they're going to go, or until they get strong enough to be able to leave and fend for themselves. So thank you guys. You learned a lot about harbor seals today. And I wanted to ask if anybody had any questions. So if you were holding your questions until the very end, we can talk a little bit about those, or if you have any comments, I'd love to hear about it. I know we were going to circle back to this slide that I have up here about some of the things that make a harbor seal a marine mammal. So whatever you guys are comfortable with talking about, we can talk about.
I have a question.
Sure. Go ahead, Charlie.
Will a mom ever be defensive of her pup, like if you're throwing, like if someone was throwing sticks or water or sand at it?
Yeah, so usually when someone is, I mean, it's not that it could never happen, but usually if somebody comes across the pup on the beach and is harassing it, it's by itself, right? And so what happens is if mom is in the area, and sometimes she's just offshore in the water trying to find food for herself, so she doesn't like to leave her pup and go very far. If she sees people approach, or she sees that there's some kind of danger that her pup might be in, we're we're not a lot bigger than they are size-wise, but we are more capable animals on land. We're built to be on land. And she senses danger, she's probably not going to try to fight us or fight off a dog. She's probably just going to leave. And that's usually the rule of thumb that we stick to when we tell people to keep their distance, because we want to make sure that we don't hurt the animal. But there have been times where if dogs have approached grown adult seals too closely, that the dogs have gotten hurt too, because the seals have felt threatened. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. All right, who else has a question? I only have a few boxes on here, so I can't see everybody's hands.
Amanda, there's one in the chat.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Do mother and father mate for life? Do they always stay in harbors close to the shore, or do they go out into deeper waters sometimes? So I'm going to start with the last one. I do think that they go out into deeper water sometimes. Harbor seals are one of the most widely distributed marine mammals, and I have a feeling that when people get down to the water, it's what you would have the greatest chance of seeing. I don't know exactly how they got their name, harbor seal. Maybe Cindy knows that. Do you know that?
I think just because they're, like you said, they're widely distributed and are seen in harbors and marinas everywhere.
Yeah. But there are quite a few rocks and places that are only accessible by boat around the Salish Sea that I have been near from time to time, where there are a lot of seals hauled out. So they will go out into the Salish Sea. They'll go out through the Strait of Juan de Fuca. They're off the coast of Washington. They're so widely distributed that there are actually populations in the Atlantic, up where it's cold and where they're on ice flows up there. So I do think that with them being widely distributed, they travel a little bit, but from what I read, most harbor seals tend to stay within 5 miles of kind of where they were born or where they roam, if I'm not mistaken. But that could be a fact you might have to check me on. As far as do mom and dad mate for life, I don't think that they do. Is that correct, Cindy? I didn't think they did.
Yeah.
I think they kind of have a hard time finding each other again, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are good questions. Anybody else have any questions before we move on to the activity? No? Okay. So how many people were able to print the activity out? Do you have a copy of it in front of you? I'm going to try to pull up my copy so that I can follow along with you guys, and I thought maybe we could just do it together. So if you don't have a copy, I'm going to share my screen anyway, and we can just kind of walk through some of the questions here.
I don't think maybe I can quickly print out the piece of paper because I don't have it.
Okay. Or like I said, I'm going to go ahead and share it on the computer. So let's see. Yes, I can get it to come up. All right, so it looked like this, in case you guys didn't get a chance to see it before or print it off. And so we're going to focus mainly on the human threat to seals. And that was why when I was talking about predators and danger, I separated it. And we talked about the orcas first, because that's something that happens naturally. But humans are still a threat to harbor seals and to pups, and we talked about that. And so what I did when I was going through my PowerPoint was I was trying to highlight some of the answers in yellow so that when we got to this part, you guys remembered some of the things that we talked about. But to go over it quickly, I have, if you see a marine mammal on the beach, you don't approach it, right? Stay at least 100 yards away, and that's to prevent disturbance or prevent mom from thinking that you're a danger to her pup. We talked a little bit about why they come out of the water, so I have that in here, and that mom is usually looking for food nearby when she leaves that pup alone, and what it means to abandon them. Does anybody remember what the word abandon means? Charlie?
Sorry, I was having computer problems again.
No worries. All right, so what does the word abandon mean?
Leave and never come back.
Leave and never come back, right? So she gets so scared that she leaves the area and she does not come back for the pup. So that's the big reason why you should never approach a seal pup. You shouldn't pour water on it. You shouldn't try to get it back into the water or do anything to harass or cause a disturbance. And that's when we ask that you please call the Stranding Network if you see somebody doing that. And we'll come examine the situation and then see what we can do to help. But so your first little line that we have here, I've got this graphic of a person, and we've got a harbor seal here, and I've got this arrow on the distance to keep apart, and it says 100 yards. Does anybody remember how many feet were first in a yard? Does anybody remember how many feet are in a yard? Anybody? Charlie, you want to go again?
3.
3 feet. So if you took 100 yards and you times it by 3 feet, how many feet should you stay away from harbor seals? 3 times 100. 103 times. How many is that? 300. Awesome. So the other small activity we have at the bottom here, and we can work our way through this. I'm going to take maybe, does everybody want to try in the participants window? Let's everybody for a small second go back and everybody see if you can raise your hand for me. I want to see if everybody can get their little hand icon up on their screen. Charlie did it. I think Judah did it. Margot, you remember how to raise your hand? We've got 2 people. Okay. So we got a bunch of people that know how to raise their hands. So let's all put our hands down. And when we go through these, if it's the correct action that we should take, I'm going to ask you guys to put your hand up and say, yep, that's what we should do. If it's not correct, we're going to talk about it and then we'll move on to the next one. So I have a scenario here. It says there's a seal on the beach that looks like he may be hurt. He seems to be very lazy and isn't moving very much. You also notice that he has an injury near his tail that might be keeping him from swimming properly. So what do? We're going to go over the steps. So I have circled the correct action, but since all of you don't have it printed off, we're just going to read them. So should anybody try to feed the seal bread?
No.
All right, so we have a no. Do we have any votes with hands? Does anybody think you should try to feed the seal anything at all? Really? No? All right, I don't see any hands. I see thumbs down. I heard a no. So that's right, you shouldn't try to feed him anything. So the next one says call your local stranding network. So who thinks you should do that? Let's see a show of hands.
Yes.
I see some thumbs up. I hear yes. Anybody? Hands? Yes. Perfect. So yes, if you think that the seal is injured, You should call your local stranding network. So the next one says, from 100 yards, try to see if you can tell why the seal looks sick or injured so you can make a good report. Do you think that that's something you should do before you call the stranding network?
Maybe.
Thumbs up, hands raised. Dan raised his hand.
Oh, by the way, there's a cool little thing you can do that is a thumbs up. If you go to more, like with the raise hand thing, if you go to the top, I don't know if this is for everyone, you might see a clapping hand or a thumbs up. You can press the thumbs up if it's yes.
Yay, all right. I like the thumbs up. And Charlie, did you have a question or were you saying, yeah, you should?
I had a question.
Sure.
What if, should you just stay away from the beach if it's too small for staying 100 yards away? Or what if you really want to go on the beach, but there's 2 seal pups?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question.
And there isn't enough space in between them.
Yeah, so what do you think you should do?
Just stay away from the beach?
Yeah, for a little bit. So, you know, sometimes mom will help that pup, especially when it's learning how to swim. It won't be on that same beach forever. What usually happens when people come out and seal sit after we get a call that there might be a pup on the beach of concern or that we want to try to keep people away from is we give that pup 48 hours and we wait to see if mom's going to come back and get that pup back and feed the pup and take care of him. That's usually a pretty good indication whether or not it's been bothered enough that mom might be gone. So you could try to go back to that beach in a couple of days, but it could also be a really protected area or a favorite spot of that pup. And again, they're only going to be nursing from mom for like maybe 4 to 6 weeks. So that's 28 to 42 days. I know that seems like a really long time, especially if that's the beach right down the street from your house. Yeah.
What if in a few days, well, the pup still has to nurse, it gets disturbed and the mom abandons it? Would someone have to come over and care for it?
Yes, that is a possibility. So people that work for our stranding network would be able to come out and see how long the pup has been there, what condition the pup is in. And then if it was something that humans caused, like if we caused that mom to kind of, you know, be fearful and leave the area, then there are options for certain facilities that could possibly rehab the pup. And what that means is they would take the pup in, care for it until it was big enough to be released. And then we would take it back to the same spot that we found it and try to put it back the way that it was and see if the pup survives. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but what if the pup was already in bad condition, like it had a broken flippers, or it wasn't doing that well and it was really badly injured?
Yeah. So sometimes if things are really badly injured, we have to make really tough decisions, right? And that's not just with seal pups. Sometimes that's with all animals. And if it seems like they're not going to survive, sometimes what we'll do is we try to put the animal to sleep and make sure that it doesn't have to suffer for a really long time before it dies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've had that with my...
That's not always our favorite.
Pets.
Yeah, that's not a very favorite option for any of us, but we feel like it's probably more humane that that animal doesn't have to suffer for a long period of time if we feel like no matter what we would do to try to rehab it anyway, we wouldn't be able to fix the problem. So does that kind of make sense, Charlie?
What if it's doing good enough? Yes, but what if it's doing good enough, it just has a small injury and it will take a little longer, but it will heal?
Yeah. There are facilities that know how to assess the situation. So they'll look at the seal and see what might be wrong with him. And then depending on whatever's wrong, they'll know how long to keep it in the rehab facility. They're going to try to give it the best chance that it can to go back to the wild and be released, for sure.
Well, what if it was born really soon before, and then a human comes over and thinks it's not doing well?
Yeah.
And then its mom senses it and abandons it. when it's really young and it needs milk?
Yeah.
You have to take it into a building for special care.
That could be an option. So every time we get a call, somebody has to go out and they have to fill out this really detailed form and answer a lot of questions. And we have to look at a lot of things to make sure if we take the pup that it's going to have the right care and it's going to have the best chance to be released to the wild again. Sound good? All right, so I'm going to move on to some of these other ones on here real quick. So we did the top row here. So would it be a correct action to take to try to scare the seal back into the water? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs down. I see a couple thumbs down. Perfect. So no, you wouldn't want to scare it back into the water, especially if it's injured. So the next one says, pour water on the seal while you wait for the stranding network professional that you called. Yes or no? Thumbs up, thumbs down. What do you think? Should you try to pour water on it? Thumbs down. Shouldn't try to pour water on it. If you're trying to pour water on it, you're closer than 100 yards, right? All right. Keep other people from getting too close to the seal. Is that a correct action? Thumbs up. I see a couple thumbs up. Margot, what do you think? Should we try to keep people away from the seal? Thumbs up. Perfect. Is Judah still there? Thumbs up, thumbs down. All right,
my mom just saved my life by putting the charger and plugged it into my computer. It was like about to just turn off. I was like freaking out.
Oh, well, we're glad you're still here. All right, so another action, let's see if it's right or wrong. Should you try to figure out what beach you're on so that when you call, you make sure that the stranding network can find the seal that you're calling about? Yes or no? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Thumbs up, thumbs up. Anybody else? You think that that's what you should do, is try to figure out what beach you're on so you give good directions? Awesome. All right, last one. Should you wrap the seal in a beach blanket so that you can take him to an animal shelter yourself? Who thinks that's a good action? Thumbs up. Anybody? Hands up, anybody? I don't see anybody on my screen. All right, so no, you should leave him on the beach. So no beach blanket. Don't take him to the animal shelter yourself. Well, we have people that are trained to know what to look for to be able to do those things. So Margot or Charlie, I can't remember which one of you, maybe it was Margot. Did you ask me for information, like a phone number or a website that you were able to call?
I did, yes.
Okay, so if you guys all registered to be in this webinar, we tried to get this handout emailed to you probably yesterday. If you registered very quickly and you want a copy or you didn't get a copy, you can email us and we can send this to you. But this information that's right here on the screen, how to report and who to report to. So 866 Orca Net is our number. We've got an email here too. And then there are a couple websites here if you want more information about the Stranding Network and some of the work that we do. But you can find all of this on Orca Network's website too.
Got it.
All right, well, good. All right, guys, well, I think that's all I have. You guys did really good with the questions. You did really good with the answers to the activity. If no one has any other questions, then, oh, Charlie, yeah. Go ahead.
You say the number, I want to write it down.
Yes, it is 866-Orca Net. So if you were looking at your phone, which I can do for you too, and I have to cheat. When you pull the keypad up, I don't know if you guys can see this here. Every number has a couple letters in it too. So if you were to look at your phone and find the O, like the O for instance is a 6. So OrcaNet just stands for some of the letters that you would see on your phone. I don't know if I can make that bigger or not. Does that make sense? Yeah. So did you get that?
I got 866-0.
ORCANET. So Orca Net, which is short for Orca Network.
I'm ready to go to Orca Network.
Perfect.
I got it wrong the first couple times I tried to do it, but now I know it, so I can do it.
Cool. Have you visited us before, Margot?
No, but my mom always looks every night on Orca Network and
Cool. Well, when all of the craziness is over and you guys can travel again, you'll have to come see us.
We might even try.
There is a question.
Oh,
There is a question from Judah on the chat. Why do the trained people get to help seal
Sure.
pup?
That's a really good question. So the reason that people go through the training is because of that federal law that we talked about. So the training actually comes from NOAA, who is the federal entity or the federal company that decided that the Marine Mammal Protection Act should be in place. And what basically happens is they train people to have special permission to know what they're going to look for when they go out on the beach. And they want us to make sure that the whole presentation that I just gave to you guys and all the rules that I just explained, that we know that, because we have to tell the public what we're doing when we're out there. We have to be able to wear our little badges that show that we've taken the training. And then when you take the training, they talk a lot about, like, a seal pup is a live animal. So if we are going to go out and try to rescue it, there are different ways to do that without really stressing the animal out. So there are a lot of things that you have to be trained on, and you have to learn how to handle an animal very gently in a situation that's probably going to scare the animal and stress the animal. And then you need special permission in order to do that. So those are the reasons why people that are trained are the ones that come out and respond to those situations, so that we know that we're doing it right and that we're doing it just like everybody else. So it's all uniform. Does that make sense? Or do you have any follow-up questions, Judah? Okay, perfect. All right, well, what do you guys think? If we don't have any more questions, we're going to turn you loose. I guess a bunch of you already left to go jump in the pool.
Thanks everybody for joining us.
Wait, so here's the thing. How are they allowed to treat, even though they have to be like 1 football field away? Because permission doesn't mean anything, because it's still a seal.
Yeah. So so one thing that makes sense, and one thing, Judah, I don't know, did you tell us that you lived out here in Washington State? Did you get a chance to introduce yourself, or did you join kind of late?
Yeah, I live in Clinton, but right now I'm in Hawaii.
Oh, okay. Well, it's probably really nice down there. Okay, so if you're in Clinton, so one of the things that we give presentations on a lot and that we talk about a lot are when scientists and researchers go out on the water and they're studying something. So there are rules in place for the general public, right? But then science and research and different actions that might need to be taken in order to bend those rules a little bit, what it requires is a permit. So we, or our Marine Mammal Stranding Network, would have to go to NOAA, who made these rules, and say, we're a stranding network that wants to respond. We want to be able to help. Can you write us a permit that says if we follow all of these rules and we get trained, and you know, it's not something that you just get trained on one time. Usually what happens is every year there's a course that you have to go back to, and it's basically learning the same thing again. So it's called a refresher course. And that permit allows certain people that meet specific requirements to be exempt from those rules temporarily, but for a good cause. So it wouldn't just be like, because I'm part of the Stranding Network, if I go on any beach and I see any seal pup, I can just walk up to it whenever I want to. I would never want to do that. I went through the program and I have the certification that if my coordinator calls and says, I need you to go set up, you know, a barrier on the beach, and can you sit and watch the seal pup for us for the next 8 hours, that I would be able to go out there and do that because I know what the procedures are and I went through the training in order to get that. Does that make sense? I know it seems kind of like some people are exempt from the rules, but you have to go through a lot in order to be exempt from the rules. And then it has to be for a really, really good cause. So we're trying to prevent people from disturbing pups so that they, you know, can live their lives. And then if some of them are in trouble and they're assessed to be good candidates for rehab, then we know how to go out there and try to get those pups in the least stressful way possible and get them to the right place.
Okay.
Make any sense? I know it's kind of complicated.
Not exactly, because it's just like, so the question, how do they do it without the pup getting stressed? Because remember, the scent, their scent can still.
Yeah. So the first thing is we'll never take a pup if mom is nearby. The very first step is to give it that 48-hour window where we're hoping that mom comes back. So when we get on the scene and we create that 100-yard barrier and we put signs up to let people know there's a pup on the beach, we're going to watch that pup from 100 yards and talk to people to try to keep them out of that area and their dogs for the first 48 hours. And we're going to wait to see if mom comes back. And if mom comes back and she feeds the pup, or she even just comes back and takes the pup, then we know that the pup is going to be okay. But if for some reason mom doesn't come back in that 48-hour period, then the next step would be to figure out how we're going to get it to a rehab facility if it's a candidate to go. And then there's a procedure for that. So one thing that I know off the top of my head is, do you have cats or dogs at the house?
Just 2 dogs, but they.
Have you ever had to travel with your cats or dogs?
No.
No.
My cat would hate it.
Yeah, and so my animals do not particularly like the car. And when I load them up to go to the vet, I do try to put them in carriers to keep them calm and keep them stationary. But another thing that I do sometimes is I put a big towel or a big blanket over it, and it keeps it dark. That helps not to see a lot of movement, a lot of light. That will help with some sound being reduced too. So those are all things that would be new to the animal that could possibly stress the animal out. And I'm not saying that taking the pup off the beach is going to result in no stress, because the animal doesn't know any better. It is going to be stressed out when, you know, you're taking it off the beach, but we're trying very hard to make sure we're not doing anything to cause it more stress than it has to be, if that makes sense.
Well, my cats, it's already like impossible to get them into the carrier.
Yeah.
You have to lead them in with treats. You have to pick them up and shove them into the carrier.
Yeah. So, but when we take them to the vet, we're doing it for their health and for their own good, right?
Yes.
Sometimes they get sick. Sometimes they need checkups. Sometimes they need those annual vaccines. They don't know that it's for their own good. They're just fearful sometimes because it's a situation that they're not in before. And so, I mean, we even stress our own cats and dogs out, but we're trying to minimize that or make it the least amount of stress that we can. Judah, you still look like you're not really sold on that. Like I said, I know it's complicated. All right, anybody else before we go? I know it's sunny out there, and at least it's a gorgeous day where I'm sitting. No clouds, it's warm. I'm sure everybody wants to go play. All right, so one last question then before I turn it over to Cindy or Wendy to say goodbye. If you guys see a seal pup on the beach and you're going to keep 100 yards from it, you'll make sure that everybody else on the beach does the same thing, right? Yeah, that's the best thing we can do to try to let nature take its course and keep those pups with mom and make sure that they grow up and have a chance at living in the sea. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for playing along with us and learning and doing the activity. I had fun with you.
Thank you, Amanda. It's
Yeah.
great.
Well, so we'll do another one of these, I'm assuming next month, right, Wendy?
Yes, in August. And I just appreciate everybody being patient with us as we go to these virtual youth events, and especially for Amanda and Cindy for taking on this whole Zoom meeting stuff. And you kids are great. Your questions are great. You're learning how to do Zoom better than I am. So
Yeah, I didn't even know about the thumbs up, so that's awesome.
we're learning from you. So it's a lot of fun to see you all every month. Thank you.
Too many Zoom meetings I've had to know that.
I think we all feel like that.
Well, Charlie, thanks for coming 2 months in a row. Are you going to try to come to the third one next month?
Probably.
Okay. And even though you're in Georgia, if you can still make it, it's 8 o'clock your time when we start this, isn't it? Or no, I'm sorry. It's 6 o'clock when we start this. Yep.
Yeah, it is 6 o'clock. Basically my dinner time.
Yeah,
I'm
it's your
staying
dinner
late.
time.
Go eat.
My mom's happy I'm doing this, and I'm happy too.
Oh, good.
I'm happy too.
Now I know to stay a football field away from a little pup, and I can
Yeah.
just maybe watch it for like 48 hours. Who knows?
There you go.
Margot,
I'm a professional.
I checked, Margot, there is a Stranding Network in Georgia. So you can look that up. If you ever see a seal pup, you can look up the Georgia Stranding Network.
Well, actually, in Savannah, you can go to the beach there. I bet there's some pups there. I mean,
Yeah.
I think my friend's texting me.
All right, everybody. We'll
Hey,
see you
thanks,
next month.
everybody. It's
Look
good
for
to
some
see you.
announcements on what we're doing next month. Bye,
Yeah.
everybody.
Bye. Have a fun night.
Bye. Thank you, Amanda. See you tomorrow.
To ask about,
Yeah.
when me and my parents printed out the orca sheet, we didn't see that.
Oh, that was from last time. Yeah? We did the how to draw last time. Except we did an orca. We didn't do the gray whale, but we put the gray whale in there too. So you can do that one at home.
All right. Anything else?
Well, thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Thanks for
Thank you
coming.
all. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
All right. See you next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.